Hello again, my fiber friends. I'm ReRe, and this is Exploration Crochet, part of the Yarn Over Hook network. I had a funny experience this week. A friend asked for help with a crochet pattern. She had a pattern published in 2023, written in German. The pattern had written instructions, a chart, and a key. Her question was one about her edges not being straight and possibly dropped stitches. I looked at the chart, from the bottom up as one does, and in the second row saw small vertical rectangles placed between the symbols for a group of 3 chains. Now I've seen a lot of charts and chart symbols in my day, but I've never seen a vertical rectangle. So, using stitch logic, I figured it had to represent either a slip stitch or a single crochet, some short stitch to attach the chains to the double crochets from the previous row. As fate would have it, last week I was moseying around Substack and came across the Crochet Translation Project. And I'll give you one guess as to what language they had started translating U.S. crochet terms into. German. German, that's your guess. Anyway, they have the cutest logo, and their motto is eliminating the language barrier one term at a time. I'll leave a link in the show notes. So, I checked the pattern key for the word for the symbol and scrolled down, ducking and dodging all the pop-up ads until I found it. And although I had guessed it, I was still surprised to see single crochet. Now, I had been planning to do a podcast on charts anyway, but this got me to thinking, and I decided there was no time like the present. So this week, we're interrupting what I had originally thought I'd be talking about to talk about something else. Crochet symbols. Those mysterious little hieroglyphics that show up in crochet charts. And if you've ever come across one of these in the wild and thought, wait, can I actually read this? The answer is probably. Crochet symbols are often called international, and in many ways they are. They create a shared visual language that helps crocheters understand patterns across written languages. But, and you knew there was going to be a but because it's crochet after all. What I learned this week is that international does not always mean universal. And already someone has put down their hook and whispered, absolutely not. I know, I get it. But trust me, learning charts is well worth the time investment. And once you understand the convention, they're far easier to understand than you think. International crochet symbols are the closest things crochet has to a common global language. But like any language, they have accents, dialects, and regional colloquialisms. So today, we're looking at crochet charts, where they came from, how they developed, and most importantly, why they matter. To understand why crochet symbols matter, we have to start with the big problem. Crochet not having one single worldwide written language. And you know, I don't just mean English versus Japanese versus Spanish versus German. I'm looking across the pond at you, UK. That terminology split alone has confused generations of crocheters. This is where charts become incredibly useful. A symbol chart does not rely only on the name of the stitch. Instead, it shows the structure of the stitch. A short crossed mark like a plus sign can represent the short basic stitch we call US single crochet, or the UK double. A taller symbol with one slash can represent the stitch called the US double crochet, or the UK treble. The name changes, the physical action stays the same. That is the genius of crochet symbols. They helped crocheters move beyond the problem of words. It was incredibly helpful because crochet is not just a list of steps. Crochet is architecture. When you crochet, you're not only asking, what stitch do I make next? You're also asking, where does that stitch go? Does it share a base with another stitch? Does it share a top? Is the row or round increasing, decreasing, joining, or building a motif? Written instructions can explain all of that, but sometimes they have to work very hard to do it. A chart can show the structure almost instantly. You can see the shell, you can see the corner, you can see the repeat, you can see where the stitches gather and where they spread. That is why crochet charts are so powerful. Think of it this way. Written patterns are like directions. Crochet charts are like maps. Both can get you there, but the map lets you see the whole journey before you take the first step. One reason crochet charts work so well is that they are not random. They are visual. They often resemble the stitch or the motion of making the stitch. A chain is usually drawn as an oval or a small loop because a chain stitch looks like a loop. A slip stitch may be shown as a dot because it's small, short, and compact. A single crochet may be shown as a plus sign, an X, or a small cross because it's a short, anchored stitch. A half double crochet is often represented by a short T-like symbol. A double crochet is usually a taller T with one slash. A treble, taller still, and has two slashes. A double treble has three slashes. Those slashes matter. They often represent yarn overs or stitch height. More slashes mean a taller stitch. So, once you understand the basic grammar, crochet symbols begin to make sense. You're not just memorizing random marks. You're learning a visual shorthand for stitch structure. Yes, at first charts look like secret code. Then suddenly you'll be surprised. One day they just click. And once they click, you start looking at written instructions and thinking, could we maybe draw this instead? Crocheters have long used visual systems. One important ancestor is filet crochet. Filet crochet uses a grid of open and filled squares to create images, letters, borders, and lace-like designs. An open square can mean a combination of double crochet and chains. A filled square, a block of double crochets. It's a very different kind of chart, but the principle is similar. The crocheter is reading the fabric visually. There are also lace diagrams, motif layouts, garment schematics, and other visual instructions in needlework publishing. So when modern crochet symbol charts became common, they were part of a broader history, the long relationship between handcrafts and visual instruction. Crochet symbols did not invent charting, they just gave crochet a more detailed visual alphabet. No conversation about crochet symbols is complete without first talking about Japanese crochet patterns. Japanese crochet publishing has had an enormous influence on modern chart literacy. Inspired by technical drafting, blueprinting, and industrial schematics, Japanese publishers designed a system of graphic icons that mimic the physical anatomy of stitches. This is one reason Japanese crochet books became beloved by crocheters around the world, even those who could not read Japanese. And that is powerful. It turned patterns into travelers. A motif from Japan, a shawl from Russia, a doily from Europe, or an edging from Brazil could cross language boundaries because the chart carried so much of the meaning. But Japanese symbols are not identical to every other system. For example, in Japanese charts, single crochet is often showed as a capital X, or a multiplication symbol, or a plus sign. In many North American standard symbol guides, single crochet may be shown as a plus sign or a cross-like mark. Same stitch, different symbol. Still international, but not universal. In the United States, one of the major standardizing influencers has been the Craft Yarn Council. In 2008, the CYC helped standardize many things around the yarn world, including crochet and knitting chart symbols. Their crochet chart symbols were adopted by many member companies, by yarn manufacturers, publishers, and designers. That matters because standardization helps reduce confusion. But the CYC is influential, not all powerful. It is not the world government of crochet. It does not control independent designers, countries, magazines, Etsy PDFs, and especially not hand-drawn patterns floating around Pinterest. So CYC style symbols are important, especially in North America, but they are only one system within a larger international ecosystem. That is why the best rule is still always read the pattern key. The pattern key is not decorative. The pattern key is the constitution of that pattern. A good way to look at crochet symbols is to understand they are a shared visual convention, not a binding universal law. They are like airport signs for yarn people. Very helpful, widely understood, but every now and then you still end up standing in front of a sign and thinking, does that mean baggage claim or bathroom? Crochet symbols vary by country, publisher, designer, technique, and era. The basics are usually consistent enough to be useful, but the farther you move away from basic stitches, the more variation you will find. Chains, slip knots, single, double, treble crochet are usually fairly recognizable. But puff stitches, bobbles, popcorn, post stitches, mosaic crochet, Tunisian crochet, that is where the symbol system starts sweating. Always remember the symbol does not solve every problem, but it gives us a bridge. That is crochet, my friends. Let's take a quick look at some prominent international exceptions. In amigurumi, especially in many Asian language or globally shared amigurumi patterns, you may see a capital X for single crochet, a capital V for increase, capital A for decrease, capital W for 3 stitches in 1 stitch, and a capital M for 3 stitches decreased together. This is not always formal symbol charting. Sometimes it's simply shorthand. In some Chinese style notation, you may also see letters used in ways that are not typical in English language symbol charts. For example, a capital T may mean half double crochet in some systems, a capital F may mean double crochet, and a capital E treble. Again, this can be very efficient once you know the code, but it's not the same as assuming every international chart uses identical symbols. In many formal stitch symbol charts, an increase may be drawn by 2 stitch symbols emerging from the same base. A decrease may be shown as 2 stitch symbols leaning together, sharing one top point. Both systems are logical. One is pictorial, the other is shorthand. This is why a crocheter can be chart literate and still need the key. Look at it this way. You may know the language generally, but you still need to understand the local accent. And also be aware when crocheters say chart, they may mean several different things. So chart literacy is not just knowing what an oval means, it's knowing what kind of visual instruction you're looking at. A fillet chart is not read the same way as a Japanese lace chart. An amigurumi shorthand chart is not the same as a full symbol chart. Like I said before, crochet charts are maps, but there are different kinds of maps. A road map is not a subway map. A weather map is not a treasure map. Although, let's be honest, some crochet charts do feel like treasure maps, especially when the treasure is not frogging 3 hours of work. So now let's muddy the waters even further. because, as I hinted before, special stitches are where things get spicy. Puff stitches, baubles, popcorn, cluster shells, picots, post stitches, cables, and textured stitches can vary dramatically from designer to designer. The symbol can suggest the general idea, but the written stitch explanation tells you the exact method. This is why the pattern key matters so much, and the inclusion of one is an important part of any well-written pattern. For special stitches, the symbol is often only the label on the door. The pattern notes tell you what is actually happening inside the room. And some chart issues are not about the stitch symbol itself. They are about how the work is constructed. So directions matter too. A flat chart may read from right to left on one row, then left to right on the next because you turn the work. A round motif chart is usually read from the center outward. A circular chart can be read counterclockwise depending on the tradition and the pattern notes. So do not just read the symbols, read the arrows, the row numbers, the round numbers, and the notes. The chart is not just a collection of icons, it is a set of directions. And sometimes, like a GPS with an attitude, it will happily let you make the wrong turn if you're not paying attention. Now that I have thoroughly horrified you about crochet charts, I want to say something that may comfort anyone who has ever looked at a chart and immediately shut the book. Look, charts are not automatically easier. They are easier once you know how to read them. At first, they can be intimidating. A beginner has to learn what each symbol means, where to begin, which direction to read, how repeats are marked, whether turning chains count as stitches, how special stitches are defined, and how the chart relates to the written instructions. And that is a lot. But I promise you, once you learn the system, charts can become incredibly liberating. They allow you to see the whole pattern. You can spot mistakes faster. You can understand stitch placement more clearly. You can visualize shaping and repeats. Chart reading is a skill. It is not magic. It is literacy. And like all literacy, it takes practice. And the rewards? They are boundless. Phew! So, what is the takeaway from all this? Crochet symbols may not have achieved universality, but they have, for the most part, achieved a shared literacy. And that in and of itself is remarkable. Crochet symbols are not a single worldwide law, but they are a common visual language. Sure, they have regional accents, publisher preferences, designer inventions, but for the most part, they work. Not perfectly, but still beautifully. And honestly, that feels very crochet. Crochet itself is adaptive, so why would its symbol system be perfectly rigid? Of course it has variations. Of course single crochet has aliases. Puff stitches require proof of identification. And of course the pattern key is sitting there like the village elder saying, "Child, you better read this before you get your feelings hurt." Crochet symbols were adopted because crochet needed a way to move beyond language, a way to bridge the US-UK terminology split, a way to make crochet more visible, more portable, and more accessible. So the safest rule is the simplest. Read the chart, read the key, respect the dialect. And if I've piqued your curiosity about crochet chart reading, Yarn Over Hook has an excellent free resource where you can test your chart reading skills as well as download a printable cheat sheet and print your own flashcards. I'll leave the link for that in the show notes. Knowing how to read a chart is like having a passport. If you can read the symbols, you can crochet anything from any country. And that's why when my friend asked for help with the German pattern, I didn't hesitate. I figured, oh, I can do this. And remember, if the symbol looks suspicious, it probably has a footnote. Once again, thank you so very much for sharing, liking, subscribing, and just listening. This has been Exploration Crochet.